hello. I know there's many ecclesias, many churches around the world, including at Glandore and across in Canada, where my brother is, and a number of people who are calling in and say hello to all of you in these special circumstances. And so here we are, March 22, 2020, and I'm speaking to you today to a live audience of 9, and maybe an online and phone audience of a few hundred, who knows. And who would have thought that we would see this day? And so the ancient Chinese proverb comes to mind, may you live in interesting times. And we are living in really momentous times, a period of history that perhaps is only rivaled a handful of times over the past 1,000 years. So it no doubt has challenged you all how to respond, how to think, how to find comfort when all around what we know and understand is crumbling. Well, even the way that we meet this morning is very different. It is at least good that we can calmly and quietly take some time to try and think of higher thoughts and find peace there. So Jesus said to us, "Come to me, all you who labour and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." These are calming, soothing words, and right now we definitely labour. We definitely feel the mental stress of this global pandemic, but he said that we could find rest. And how is that possible in a time of stress? So I want to tell you a story about human life. Imagine for a moment that you're watching a woman standing for weeks on the seashore, and she's embracing certain good waves and trying to prevent them from disintegrating, trying to hang on to them, to keep them around for as long as she can before they recede back into the ocean. And simultaneously, while trying to keep all of these good waves, she's trying to push back the bad waves and prevent them from getting near her. And you watch as she does this day after day after day after day. And it drives her crazy. She can never truly get on top of it, and it proves fruitless. It's relentless. And eventually, one day, she just sits down on the sand instead and lets the waves come and go as they please, both in and out, in and out. How peaceful, how calming, how restful. And the point of this story is to illustrate our human existence. We naturally seek the good. We pursue it. We want to feel happy, of course. And we want to collect only the good waves, naturally. But of course, this feeling can actually be quite elusive. And right now, it's a real challenge to feel happy. And so naturally, as humans, we suffer. And as you can find in most philosophical discussions, from, of course, the Bible to Buddhism to modern philosophy, the root of suffering is actually this relentless chase of the good. This causes a state of tension, a restlessness and a dissatisfaction. It's the labour that is referred to by Jesus, because we're weighed down by it. We're weighed down by that pursuit, and our mind is never satisfied. And it's actually been proven in neurological science that the human brain, even when experiencing something pleasurable, is not truly content. And that's because it's a very simple human thing, because we fear that this feeling might soon disappear. And if we're old enough, we know that it will disappear. You've probably heard the phrase a million times, and I remember hearing it a lot when I was a kid, that all good things must come to an end. And we know this by experience, and yet we of course crave those good times. We want them to stay and intensify. And so it's really hard when things are bad, because we want to go back to the good, and that makes us feel anxious. To illustrate this point for a moment, I want to allow yourself to travel back to mid-2019. So mid-2019, no bushfires, no coronavirus, no toilet paper apocalypse. What you wouldn't give to go back there now, to feel those feelings that you had felt then, the contentment, the happiness. But if you're actually honest with yourself, you probably were a little dissatisfied back then. Things could have perhaps been better. Sure, they were good, but they could have been better. Your job could be better, your footy team hadn't won, your car needed upgrading. See, it's all relative, and our pursuit of happiness is never ending, and the human psyche is never fully satisfied. And it's like the woman at the seashore. We want those good waves to just keep coming, and we crave more. And now here we are, March 2020, facing who knows what, facing maybe total lockdown, a virtual end to the way of life that we've enjoyed for a period, for the time being. But we can find rest. And firstly, we can find that rest in understanding that life isn't just about that pursuit of happiness, and to then take it to the higher plane and to understand that peacefully and calmly trusting in the words of Jesus can give us rest. And I believe very much that what Jesus is saying when he asks us to take our burdens and lay them on him in order to find rest is to appreciate and understand life, to have perspective. And this can help us find peace and rest for our souls. So the purpose of my thoughts this morning is simply to try and achieve one thing, and that is to try and give us all some perspective on how to deal with a major crisis like we are living in now, and to actually try and feel the peace and calm of the words of Jesus and our God. And, I thought long and hard about the angle that I would take this morning, and I must admit I've changed the tone of this talk a number of times over the last month or so. Because, of course, we could have just turned up all the soothing verses in the Bible to make us feel better. And the way this is panning out, that we will have, potentially a number of months, I'm sure that we will spend some time looking up those soothing verses on occasion to make us feel better. But I actually felt it was important, now that we are going into the worst of this pandemic, I felt it was important to give us some tools to understand and to try and make sense of the world situation that we find ourselves in. And you think about in the Bible the great philosophers, and the great philosopher Solomon, he understood that the key to life was to understand the impermanent nature of all of our feelings and to stop chasing them, and to instead to simply observe and participate in them. And in Ecclesiastes, it's an amazing book of a great philosopher who tried so many things to make himself feel content and happy. He tried luxury, he tried learning, he tried drinking, he tried lust, and his conclusion was that all is emptiness and striving after the wind. And instead, in Ecclesiastes 8 verse 12, he wrote, "I know that it will be well with those that fear the Lord." And that's us. It will be well. But I have to confess something here. I used to think that this meant that if I believed in God, nothing bad would happen to me. And I paired this verse with Romans 8, verse 28. "For all those who love God, all things work together for good, for those that are called according to his purpose." But of course, it's not true that nothing bad happens to people who love God, is it? We get cancer, we lose jobs, we suffer marriage breakdowns, we fall ill, we lose friends, we experience anxiety. We lose houses in bushfires. We get caught up in pandemics. We suffer fear and stress. We are not immune. But that verse in Romans doesn't say nothing bad will happen to you. It says all things will work together for good. So what does that mean? And I believe that what these verses are saying and what Solomon discovered is the same as that story of the woman at the edge of the seashore. It says that we need to understand that over the course of our lifetime, however long or short that is, the waves will come and they will go. And we need to realise that our feelings will rise and fall, and realise that it's pointless to pursue them as hard as we naturally do. And much the same as in life, when we stop running, when we stop this pursuit, the mind can become relaxed, satisfied, and clear. And we can take that time instead to find the peace, to find the calmness of mind that enables us to understand and to breathe deeply. And as a young person, and maybe there's some young people with you watching this morning, as a young person, this was incredibly hard to accept because you're so full of energy and you want to push forward and you want to pursue things. And it was very hard for me as a young person to accept. But now, at my age, having lived long enough to see the rise and the fall, I do understand it better. It's not that nothing bad will happen to me, but it's understanding that life is going to be a series of waves. And sometimes they feel like they're all good and they're coming in. And sometimes they feel all bad and just pulling us out. But over your life, I can assure you, they will come and they will go. And so Philippians 4 verses 6 and 7 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." And again, on the surface, that doesn't seem right, does it? Don't be anxious. I mean, now, of course, we're anxious. But think about what this verse is really saying. It's saying, by everything, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God and you'll find peace. So what about if you don't pray? Or what about if you struggle praying, as most of us probably do? So how can we think of this verse in perhaps another way? What I think it's saying is to learn to let go. And prayer is in itself a way of letting go, of unpacking our thoughts and sending them on their way. And as Philippians says, presenting them to God, literally unpacking them. And what Paul says is, in return for that letting go, in return for that presentation to God, we get peace. We get transcendental peace. And when you actually go to, philosophy and modern philosophy, it completely backs this up. Dr. Rick Hansen writes that letting go allows us to relax, it allows us to get stress relief and release painful feelings like worry or anger and drop thoughts that make us and others unhappy. He says, letting go is an action of the mind. It is completely natural. Fundamentally, letting go is the opposite of the clinging that can lead to suffering. It is about turning away from negativity and turning towards the good. And another philosopher, Dr. Noam Spencer, wrote similarly. He said, the only way out is through. So Philippians is asking us to present our requests and thoughts to God, and in return, we will get peace. And modern philosophy's version of this is saying, let go. Being able to take our thoughts and send them off, it is actually a positive. So have you spoken to God this week, this fortnight, this month? Have you thought about those things that are making you anxious in a really honest way and then letting them go? And this is backed up again in 1 Peter 5, verse 6 and 7, where it says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all of your anxiety on him, because he cares for you." And I just want you to note that carefully. It says, all your anxiety. Tell him. So tell him that it makes it really tough to see people dying on the news, to see people close to us losing their jobs, that you're really challenged to respond positively to panic buying, that there is so much unknown with this virus. Whatever it is, tell him, because simply, as he says at the end of that verse, he cares for you. And Jesus taught this too. In Luke 12, 22 to 26, he said, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. Life is much more than food, and the body much more than clothes. Consider the ravens. They do not sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more valuable are you than birds? Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to this life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you even worry about the rest?" So we need to be really honest when we read verses like this, because of course we do worry about our lives, and we care a lot about what we eat, what we wear, And we worry what is coming to us. But Jesus is very clear in his teaching. There is no point in excessively worrying. Be humble and understand the vagaries of life and let go of our fears. And again, it's the same story as the woman and the ocean. And pursuing and spending all of our time trying to embrace the good, trying to enhance happiness is only fleeting. And understanding that ultimately the key to finding rest and peace is to let go, to put our fears to God, and to accept that life is going to throw us good and it is going to throw us bad. Recently at work, I gathered all of my team around, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of heightened anxiety around the current situation. All anybody can talk of at the moment is coronavirus, of course. And understandably, it's all negative. It's all in negative comments and thoughts about, what's going to be coming to us. And unfortunately, our industry, as many of you know, I work in the tourism industry, so our industry is one that is on its knees. And so all that we could think about and talk about was exceptionally negative. And so I brought the team together and I went to an old philosophy method that I learnt well back in school, but I keep coming back to it. It was de Bono's 6 thinking hats, and you might have heard about this before. And what this technique describes is to put a topic up and then you take on 6 different types of theoretical hats in order to encourage lateral thinking. So when thinking of coronavirus, the black hat of negativity is very, very dominant right now. But the idea of this way of thinking is to take off that black hat for a while and put on one of the other hats. And there is a yellow hat of positivity, there is a green hat of new ideas, there is a red hat of feelings and emotions, the white hat of facts, and the blue hat of the big picture to go along with the black hat of negativity. So all of a sudden, with my group, with everybody putting on the green hat, where you are only permitted to think of big ideas of how to make the best of the situation, all of a sudden the ideas started to flow. So let's do that now. I want you to put on that green hat of new ideas and the yellow hat of positivity and think about the situation in front of us. No negative thoughts are allowed. You haven't got the black hat on, you've only got the green or the yellow. So just new ideas and positivity. And what does this crazy, unprecedented situation now offer you, where we find ourselves at home far more, most likely confined to home potentially for some time and for some months? Perhaps it is an opportunity to spend more time together as a family, to learn that instrument that you always wanted to learn, to go back to writing actual letters. And one thing that Kel and I are going to do is writing those actual letters and then dropping them off to neighbours and letting them know that we're there. Maybe it's to offer to do the old ladies on the corner her food shopping because she's older and vulnerable and can't get out. Maybe it's an opportunity to spend time reading again and then sharing with others and having a virtual book club. Maybe it's writing, maybe it's photography, maybe it's art. Whatever it is, with the green hat of new ideas and the yellow hat of positivity, you can think of more. And for me, one thing that I'm going to try and work on outside of my work hours is meditation in order to find perspective and calm. And I'm not sure about you, but throughout my adolescent years, I heard the word meditation a ton. Growing up in a church environment, it was a very common word. Go to meditation, read minute meditations, follow along as we have a meditation hymn. But here's a truth bomb that I bet you I'm not alone in declaring. I don't really know how to meditate. I'm hopeless at it. And I haven't really understood it. I haven't really given enough time to it. And luckily, in my case, I'm married to a yoga instructor, and yogis understand meditation. And what I learned was that in meditation, you are supposed to closely observe your mind and body and witness the ceaseless arising and passing of all of your feelings and realise that it is pointless to pursue them. Just observe, let them come and go. And when that pursuit ends, relaxation, calm, clarity and serenity comes. Now that sounds a lot like casting a burden on the Lord, doesn't it? Letting go, acknowledging our fear, being real about our feelings in order to find calm. And right now, more than perhaps ever in my life at least, we need calmness, we need clarity, and we need some serenity from the chaos that is unfolding around us. And maybe, like me, when I close my eyes, if you're like me, when I close my eyes and try and meditate, all those feelings come up. They come bubbling through. Anxiety, anger, boredom, happiness, fear, frustration, love, and I try and grab them. But when you stop chasing those feelings, you can just accept them for what they are, and you live much more in the present moment instead of thinking what might have been. And it's why when you go to a yoga class, which I need to do more, you hear the teacher saying to be in the present. Clearly she's not meaning to literally be there. You can't be anywhere else. What she means is accept that you are there to truly be there. And you can't change what's been. You can't anticipate all that's coming. You just be. To let all those feelings come and go and to be present. And right now, this is the only place that we can be. We're so challenged right now because we don't know what is coming. We don't know when this will end, how much worse it will get. And that, of course, is destabilising. It's downright scary. And so I appreciate that what I'm saying is not easy. But all we can do is to be here in the present, be truly here, to pause, to breathe, and then determine how we'll react with God and Jesus at our side. And so I appreciate that there's a lot of philosophical thoughts in what I've been saying, a lot of thoughts to try and follow. So I'll summarise. Bad things are going to happen. Coronaviruses, bushfires, etc. It will make us feel anxious. Why? Because we prefer to feel happy, in control. And so we're going to crave that happiness. We will crave to go back to the good feelings that we've experienced before. But while this crisis will end, and it will, and we will feel happiness again, to truly feel calm, to truly feel relaxed, to truly feel content, we need to understand that those waves will come and they will go, to just be, that this is life. And rather than pursue only the good, our role is to sit on the seashore and to let the good and the bad wash over us, and to take that anxiety and let it go, and instead take on Jesus and find the peace and acceptance of what life gives us. One of my dad's favourite quotes was from 1 Timothy 6, and it says, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain that we can carry nothing out. If we have food and clothing, we shall be content with these things." And in verse 11, "But you, O man of God, O woman of God, escape these things and follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, and gentleness." So this is a biblical principle. It's not easy to be content, to understand that we come in with nothing and we go with nothing. And in between, it is better to follow after and pursue the things of the soul. And yet here we are in 2020, and we 100% understand today that it doesn't really matter how shiny our car is, how big our TV is, or what suburb our house is in. Because we've been reduced with COVID-19 to subsistence, to merely existing, to basic life, no economic growth, no relentless abuse of the planet. Now we're forced to sit quietly, to slow down, to pause. And it is now more than ever that we can discover for ourselves the matters of the heart: faith, love, patience, and gentleness, who we really are. Or as our reading today that Dave read for us in Psalm 34 says in verse 14, very simply, "Turn away from evil and do good, seek peace and pursue it." So if there's anything that we should pursue, it's peace. The pursuit is not in running, striving, pushing. It is finding, discovering, understanding peace. What a great opportunity we have now in this unbelievable situation we're in to truly understand this, to understand and find peace. And if you're young and understand and are on the internet, there are so many memes going around right now with this exact advice. Slow down, go right back to the basics, try and be content. Now, I get that that's very easy to say if you don't have a job, and it sounds trite if you don't know if you'll have a job next week, or you don't have a job already. And for all of us, to be honest, if we're not doctors, nurses, farmers, or supermarket workers, that's probably all of us. So I understand how hard this is But these verses do give us perspective and hope. And we cannot seek to understand this calamity that has come on the human race. It simply has, and now there is only our reactions. And sometimes I actually find incredible freedom in saying, I don't know. My younger self sometimes wanted all the answers. My middle-aged self is far more comfortable to accept that there aren't always answers. Yuval Noah Harari wrote in the incredible book *Sapiens*, the greatest scientific discovery was the discovery of ignorance. Once humans realised how little they knew about the world, they suddenly had a very good reason to seek new knowledge, which opened up the scientific road to progress. And again, questions you cannot answer are usually far better for you than answers you cannot question. So we don't know why this global pandemic is occurring. It just is. But we do have faith. We have faith in God. A God that David wrote in Psalm 34 after getting out of a difficult situation in verse 4, that God meets me more than halfway. He freed me from my anxious fears. And in verse 17, is anyone crying for help? God is listening, ready to rescue you. And in verse 19, disciples so often get in trouble. Still, God is there every time. And Jesus emphasised this again in John 16:33. He said, I have told you these things so that in me you might have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So right now and in the days, weeks and months to come, we will have anxious fears. We will be crying for help and we will experience trouble. But we can take enormous comfort that God can meet us more than halfway, that he's listening and that he's there every single time. And God and Jesus are gently asking us to continue to follow the things of the Spirit, to love, to seek peace, to show mercy, to be pure. And it is this that we follow, this that we focus on, this we practice, even under duress. So to wrap up my thoughts, the crisis that we are living in now needs perspective. We can only be in the moment. Things will come and go, and we can find peace in that realisation. And maybe for you, you can be that person who can be peaceful and calm in your social interactions with other people. And other people might ask, where did that peace and that calm come from? It means that we don't just say it will be okay, because it may not be. Rather, it is to simply understand that life and our existence is transient, that godliness with contentment is great gain, and to seek peace, to seek understanding. And in that to find calm, to just be, to take our anxieties, our fears, and to present them to God and Jesus, because they have asked us to do this and because they are ready. God is there every time. It's been a tough week, and sadly and unfortunately it looks like it might get tougher yet. And I hope that when you have time to consider these momentous events, that you can think about the challenge of finding this calm and being in the present, to find faith and truly cast your thoughts and fears to Jesus. And if you've remembered nothing else from this talk, maybe next time that you're at the beach, which is a really calming place, or near an ocean, think of those waves coming in and going out. And choose for a moment to sit on the edge of that seashore. Close your eyes, breathe, and let those waves wash toward you and from you, and feel that peace. And be nowhere else but there. Be present, just be, and find peace. So to finish, firstly, the words of Joshua: be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And now the words to a song that we know so well, and you can sing it in your heart. If I fly away on the wings of dawn, to the sky or the depths of the sea, you will be right there. You will show the way. Your hand will hold me safe. Thank you.